Hi, I'm Chris Patterson, the member for Camden, and my role initially is just to welcome you all to Parliament House. You're currently in the Jubilee Room, which we believe is the nicest room in Parliament, and when Lisa was given the opportunity, I think we made the date around the availability of getting this room because it is so lovely. Just a little bit of history is all of those books are original and genuine Hansard. Nowadays, obviously, everything we say in Parliament is on computer, but if these ones you go around and it's all from about the 50s, and it's funny, whenever we have our, well, I think it's funny, whenever we have our Year 6 leaders in, we spend a lot of time on getting them to find the book, like in Harry Potter, that'll open the hidden staircase. Although they're not allowed to touch the books, we just point out which one. Look, my role is to, well, firstly, welcome you all here and just say it was a real privilege to have met Lisa at our DV breakfast where she was a guest speaker in Camden. And Lisa's story, as you're all here and can attest to, really is a wonderful story of triumphing over adversity, and it's a really great message that we want to get out there. And Lisa and I have actually become more than colleagues, we've become friends, and when given the opportunity to host this today, it really is a privilege and something that I'm very, very excited to be able to help in a small way. Now, my role is to introduce Tanya Whitehouse, and like so many of you here today, Tanya is a wonderful, wonderful, tireless worker and advocate for DV within my local community. And Tanya is actually my Woman of the Year, local hero, for all of her outstanding work and the help she provides people, not just in my community, but much further afield through her role. So Tanya, like so many of the people here today, thank you for your wonderful efforts and everything you do, not just for my community, but in this sphere. So, ladies and gentlemen, I think a lady that needs no introduction amongst this room, Tanya Whitehouse.
Thank you, Chris. So much pressure. Okay, first of all, these are for the delightful Lisa to celebrate your amazing. It's really interesting how Lisa and I came to meet each other. I am quite socially network challenged in social media. I only just joined Facebook this year, but I had joined Twitter. I thought I could manage that. So I joined Twitter and I was quite impressed with some retweets that Miss Annabelle was doing around things that Lisa was saying. And I thought, oh, this woman knows what she's talking about. She seems like she's got a fantastic story. So we ended up communicating with each other and met and had lunch in the city one day very quickly and have fast become good friends. And I'm truly amazed at Lisa's adversity, at her capacity to just get up and keep going when things are up and down. And I'm particularly proud to say that I can call her a friend and a colleague. So I was very privileged to read her book before it was printed. And I actually read it from the train at Campbelltown into the city, and then the train back to Campbelltown. I read it all in one go because I was so super impressed with it and I couldn't really put it down. So thank you, Lisa, for sharing your story and also for sharing your wisdom around how to engage with the business sector, around how they can better support employees who have issues of domestic and family violence. So I'm incredibly proud to be here today. A little bit red because I was running because I couldn't find a florist.
You love running.
I hate running. Trying to breathe, it's a bit embarrassing. But anyway, I'm extremely pleased to be here. I'm incredibly pleased to see so many other people coming to share her fantastic day. And congratulations to Lisa.
Thank you. Thanks for that, Tanya. I'd just like to acknowledge all of the parliamentarians here today because anybody that's been at Parliament House knows how busy it is, and we'd have a dozen pollies here from all walks of life. So thank you, and I know Lisa, having walked you around on occasion and met a number of the politicians, they're extremely supportive, and this is also a great way for them to take your story back to their electorate. So to all of you today, thank you for turning up, obviously. My role now is to introduce Troy. Troy Grant is our Police Minister. He also has attended, I think, all of our DV breakfasts with Rain. He's been guest speaker at a number of them over the last 4 years, and is extremely supportive, obviously in his role, but personally in the DV space. And when I asked Troy, Lisa indicated that she'd love Troy to do the launch because of his support in this space. I actually know that, and he wouldn't want me to tell you, Troy had quite an important meeting on today. This was the room, this was the day we booked, it suited everything, and I know that he actually moved to be here. So mate, we really appreciate your support of the Camden area, especially through our DV and our breakfast, and your support of Lisa today. So ladies and gentlemen, Troy Grant, our Police Minister.
Good morning, everybody, and thanks, Pato, for that introduction. I'm quite humbled to be here, and what Pato didn't say is when he asked me, I said to him legitimately, why me? And I was just really humbled and honoured that Lisa had chosen me or asked me to participate in this very special and important event. More so once, I think I was more humbled by it after I had read the book, because it's such a book of importance, and it gives a remarkable insight into a subject matter that is very familiar to us all, but it's a book using adversity to help provide a pathway and a guide, I guess, to an important area, being the workplace, to help provide genuine empathy and support, and a toolkit, for want of a better word. And having talked to Lisa about it, she agrees with the sentiment that whilst we all can go through difficulties, adversity, tragedy, if there's no outcome for the good out of it, it's a missed opportunity. And this book, Domestic Violence, Changing Culture, Saving Lives, a workplace guide for developing a culture for empathy and understanding, is not a missed opportunity. Can I acknowledge Lisa McAdams for your tackling of this issue in such a personal way. This book is a credit to you. And my wife is an author, so I understand. But knowing that gives me an insight of how hard and challenging it is to get what's in you, inside you and in your mind and your heart onto paper in a constructive way. So congratulations, it's just such an awesome achievement, no matter what the subject matter, so you should be incredibly proud. My great mate Chris Patterson, your support of your community is exceptional, but when it comes to your advocacy and support of everything relating to domestic violence and the support of women is exceptional, my friend, and that's why I'm always happy to help you in any way I can. I'd like to also acknowledge Lynn Krause from EY, who's been a wonderful supporter, and all my parliamentary colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. As I said, I'm a little surprised that I was asked to speak, because normally when I'm asked to speak about domestic violence, it's usually in the context of what are police helping to do to reduce domestic violence, what is the government doing to support victims, how much are we investing in the budget to reduce reoffending, and in response to that I talk about new high-risk domestic violence teams being established throughout the state. I can talk about the proactive policing measures that we're undertaking, new sentencing laws, the money, the $44 million we're in the budget. I've got it all here for you. You're welcome to read it all. It's, it's important. But there's other important aspects of this subject matter, and this is what goes to the heart of what Lisa has done and what she's done for all of us. So today, I get the opportunity to talk about domestic violence in the cultural context, and often the silence that surrounds it, and the need, and it's a real need, to be conscious in the workplace of the impacts of domestic violence, and more importantly about how we can be more supportive of victims. Lisa writes, the workplace has the potential not only to change lives, but to save them. It's pretty powerful. But more than that, it's true. It's absolutely true. As Chris has alluded to before, I was in here as a politician and a Minister for Police. I was a police officer for 22 years, and I've been to more domestic violence incidents than you can poke a stick at. I've seen the impact, I've seen the suffering, and some of them I honestly wish I could remove from my memory. And Lisa's personal story and those she relays, there's been a lot of similarities to what I've witnessed firsthand. But one that I'd like to talk to you about from a personal perspective, which relates very well to this book, is that I've worked in a lot of Western community towns and a lot of towns with low socio-economic groups, and it's a common misconception that domestic violence sits largely within that group, and it does. They are overrepresented. There's a high proportion of domestic violence. But this is a crime that is so underreported, it's not funny. This is a crime that doesn't discriminate family households, workplaces, doesn't discriminate across socio-economic groups. And I think this one incident that shocked me to the core when I was called to it, and I won't disclose who, where, so I don't want to give up that privacy. But I went to, as you do, answered the call off to a domestic violence incident. Arrived at the residence, and there was a lady with her kids, around 10 and 12 years of old, distraught. She was physically injured, horrifically injured. The call had come in from not only herself in desperation, but also neighbours, such was the volatility of the incident. I was shocked, as when you turn up to see someone injured to that extent. But what shocked me more was who it was. This wasn't someone that was known to police, someone that I hadn't had a dealing with before in a policing context. This was someone of high standing in that community that operated in a council and held an important role, had a high profile in town, battered and bruised and traumatised. And overcoming that shock, obviously went into police mode to get the version of events, what happened in history, and put in place what we do as protocol. But then something remarkable happened. The perpetrator came back to the residence, who was also someone of note, and for her own protection, to try to overcome what she feared was next, was she then attacked me, physically attacked me, and she bit me to put on a show for the perpetrator that it wasn't her fault that I was there, so that she wouldn't have to pay an additional price once the incident of the night was recovered. I saw her in the weeks following that incident in her workplace as I engaged with this group, which was a council. She worked in council. I worked with them regularly, and I saw her, and the embarrassment, I could just read it in her face, in her gestures, and she was apologetic, but she didn't need to apologise to me, I understood. But to see that transferred into the workplace, that really reminds me of what this book's all about. It really helps. So as you can imagine, she was extremely distressed. Not just the physical scars she had to overcome, but more worrying, the emotional scars she had to overcome. Coming to terms with what the partner had done, who she trusted most and who had sold her in such a way. And quite simply, her life had hit rock bottom. Her comfort was going to work. But at that workplace, what was there for her? Was she going to disclose the embarrassment and all that to them? Did they have a clue what to do? You know, there was some obvious indications that something had happened they may need to rally around. But just imagine her waking up that next day and having to go into work and pretend everything's okay when it wasn't. But for many victims, they don't have a choice. And as Lisa articulates in her book, and she details really well, abuse can come in the form of not only that physical scarring and abuse, but financial and emotional domestic violence. Those injuries that aren't as obvious and aren't as clear. Isolation, that trauma. So it's absolutely vital that victims know that they have support of their employer. And that place where they spend on average 8 hours a day and largely is a safe place for them. Unlike mental illness, where a lot of work has been done to destigmatise that issue and increase public awareness, and also the underlying issues attached to depression, there is so much more we need to do on that same line with domestic violence to make sure it doesn't remain behind closed doors and to overcome that issue of underreporting. Too often it's still seen as a private matter. So I cannot commend Lisa in the book enough for bringing domestic violence to the fore and highlighting the ways in which Australian workplaces can finally support their staff. We undertook a domestic violence workplace survey. New South Wales Government conducted this survey to examine their policies in domestic and family violence and how they can explore better support for victims within their industry. The findings showed that almost all workplaces had introduced domestic violence policies in the past 5 years. However, take-up of domestic violence leave, paid or unpaid, was very low. Evidently, more needs to be done to encourage victims to access these leave provisions and support options if needed. Unsurprisingly, the survey found that the higher number of employees, the greater chance the workplace would have a DV policy. And it's clear from the survey that large corporations are aware of their responsibility to support employees who are victims of domestic and family violence. Awareness ain't good enough. It needs to take the next step. And Lisa's book will help them take that next step. Smaller businesses need to educate their staff better. They need to raise the bar. They need to do more. If I could quote Lisa here again. It is to build empathy instead of sympathy, provide support mechanisms and channels supported by policies, and to educate their staff on the complexities of domestic violence and how to recognise the signs. So we're doing our bit. There's money on the table. There's much more we can do. But now it's time for workplaces to also do their bit. And you can't ask someone to step up and take a leap of faith or to change the way they do stuff unless you put your hand on their shoulder and help guide them. And I think that's what Lisa's book does and why it's such a great credit to her. And as she acknowledges in her book, domestic violence is complex and extremely difficult for any government to completely solve on its own. What we can do, however, as individuals, family and friends, and as an employer, is to be aware of the signs and offer support and make support obviously available. For employers, this means investing in staff education, implementing robust policies and procedures, and encouraging their use wherever needed. Lisa, can I commend you once again on this very personal but extremely practical and helpful book for the businesses of Australia. I have great confidence that your advice will make a difference, and I'm so proud to be here. It's my great honour to officially launch this wonderful publication. Thank you. I'd like to invite you back up. And Thank you so much for all your work.
You're
and
welcome.
congratulations on
Thank
your
you.
acknowledgement.
Now I'm going to introduce Lynn Krause. Lynn is a managing partner of Oceania Advisory. She is responsible for the development and execution of the global advisory growth strategy in Oceania, where they have doubled the size of their business in 3 years, with a focus on risk, cybersecurity, digital solutions, data analytics, strategy and performance improvement. So impressive.
First of all, thanks, Chris, for hosting us in this beautiful room, and Tanya and Troy for your remarks. We are delighted at EY to be playing a supporting role to Lisa's incredible work. And I just wanted to make a few comments about the workplace and the journey that we've been on at EY. I do think the workplace and leadership in the workplace is a fundamental pillar in our fight against domestic violence. It was only in 2015 that a proposal came to our leadership team about adopting a domestic policy. And I want to be honest and admit there was quite a bit of confusion in the room amongst the leaders, and maybe even some skepticism about whether this was an area we should be discussing. What would that policy look like? Is it necessary? And it was pretty uncomfortable discussion, if I'm honest. And we seemed to be making an assumption that given that we had a relatively privileged employee demographic, such a policy wouldn't be relevant. And as the conversation continued, we had a few brave souls in the team speak out who talked about the impact of a team member. Another person came forward, and then a third person. So in a small team of 10 leaders, a third had personal experience in working with domestic violence, but it was something we'd never discussed before as a leadership team. It did shock some in the group. Here was an issue that we thought would largely not impact our workforce, but clearly we were mistaken, and a bit of naivety and heads in the sand. So it was at that moment that the penny dropped, and we decided to launch our own domestic violence policy. That policy provides many things, but it does provide 10 additional days of paid leave for those who've been impacted by the issue. The conversation that we had in that meeting subsequently led to a conversation in many other meetings, training sessions, and casual conversations, and it paved the way for a lot of our people to feel comfortable to come forward. Later that year, our CEO, Tony Johnson, and I did our annual roadshow, and in almost every city, once we finished our formal town hall, we had conversations with young women around the issues that they were facing and the acknowledgement that safety in the workplace was so important to them. Unfortunately, those issues continue to emerge, and as I was listening to Troy speak, only in the last month have I helped 2 young women on the weekend relocate out of their homes. One, a young pregnant person living here overseas with her partner and no family, and one, the mother of 2 young twins. So it's wonderful that they feel they can come to us and have these conversations, but a lot of times we are the only support mechanism for these women. So change in this area is absolutely essential, and the numbers speak for themselves. 1 in 5 Australian women will experience harassment in the workplace. Women between the ages of 18 to 35 are more likely to experience violence, and that is the age group that represents a large portion of women at EY with an average age of 27. 94% of our employees think that their employer should take a leadership role in educating women and men about respectful relationships. Violence against women is estimated to cost the Australian economy $21.7 billion a year. 55 to 70% of women who've previously experienced or are currently experiencing male violence are currently employed. And around 80% of women impacted by domestic violence experience economic abuse as well. A loss of income after leaving a violent relationship is an absolutely near universal experience. So apart from the interpersonal destruction, domestic violence does have a significant impact on the productivity at work, as well as the health and well-being of our people to whom we as employers, I believe, have a duty of care. At EY, we are focused on building a better working world, and in my view, that working world doesn't start or stop when you enter the workforce doors. So we believe that it truly is an issue, not only for us, but for our people, for our communities and our families, and fundamentally it's an issue for the workforce and the workplace. And that we believe that working hand in hand around gender equality can help support some of this change. So in addition to the work we've done around a domestic violence policy, we've taken other actions that we think can contribute to a better outcome. First and foremost, reducing the gender pay gap, Financial security is extremely important to a woman who might be taking a choice to leave. So we want to make sure that we are fundamentally paying men and women the same for the same work. It's also, I think, important that we see males step up as role models, taking flexibility and parental leave. I think for gender equality to be possible, we need more equality on who's taking the caring responsibilities at home. And we have seen a significant shift from 6% to 25% of our men over the last 3 years taking parental leave. And just in the last month, we've introduced flexibility with that parental leave because we think a lot of men want to take that leave, but they want to take it on a part-time basis over a longer period of time. We also believe that it's absolutely imperative to have a gender-balanced team. And 3 months ago, for the first time ever, we have a 50-50% leadership team, which has taken a long time to get there, but we are there providing role models for women and men in our organization. We've also believe one of the most important things we've launched recently is a program called EY Reconnect. And we call it a returnship, but it's really an internship and coaching program to help women who've been out of the workforce for between 2 to 10 years to re-emerge. And I think that's a really important step to helping women get back on their feet. For us, it is an absolute uncomfortable truth that as a firm, one as large as ours, with over 260,000 people around the world, that we would have people impacted by domestic violence in any number of ways. Perpetrators, as well as those who may have experienced violence, are likely to work in our organization and also in the clients that we work with. So given this, it's been really important for us to help our people have the difficult conversations about domestic and family violence. We hope that by not only supporting them in these issues in the workplace, that these conversations will have a ripple effect out into community, increasing awareness, changing attitudes and behavior, and modeling gender equality and respectful relationships. So we've been fortunate to have consulted with Lisa as we've been on our journey while we've been forming and launching our own domestic and family violence policy, and we engaged her to help run sessions with our talent team, with our manager groups, and with our people, and it has been an amazing experience for us. In addition to the 10 days of leave, we are also providing access to further flexibility for those impacted by violence, including allowing them to come into the workplace during that period of leave to have a safe place to develop their plans. And that is really important in terms of a place to go that is secure and away from violence. We also offer unlimited counseling through our employee assistance program, and we support financial flexibility, personal safety, and potential relocation. We've been really delighted to support Lisa now in the work that she's doing to help workplaces with domestic violence issues. And we really look forward to continuing the conversation and hoping that from a corporate Australia point of view, we can be part of leading the way on this really important issue. Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you. EY have been a huge, huge part of my journey. I didn't plan anything for today because I didn't, but I'm going to start this because there are corporate contacts and friends. My day job, my evening job, my job is to speak, whether I'm training, consulting, keynote, on a panel, in meetings. And probably because today is very emotional for me, you'll just have to trust me that I'm very, very good at what I do. Just trust me on that. One of the things that happens, as Troy mentioned, is the isolation. And I look around this room, and he took everybody from me. But he didn't do very well, did he? Now, there's someone here, Catherine Nicholson-Perry, what do you say? Now, when I was ready to leave him, I had a mother's group, and it was one of those mother groups where everyone went, oh, I need to leave, I need to go back to Melbourne to my family, and there was left with 3 of us. I think there's only 2 now left in Sydney. The 2 that stayed, given the mothering my mother did, was a paediatric nurse and a clinical psychologist. The Lord was saying, now's the time, girlfriend. Going on this journey, I lost everything. And even when I started this, the health impacts, and I'm not going to go into it, the health impacts of a lifetime of abuse are huge. So I had a successful training and coaching business, and I literally had to sell my clients because I wasn't well enough to train them. I then took the call to join this group and meet people that could get me where I want to do, because I've been saying this for years, but when you're saying it to your buddies in Centrelink, there's not a lot they can do to help you. This is where you come in.
And I was at a dinner and I had this idea, and then I was like, no, I can't. And Kate will attest to this. I was again facing homelessness. Literally had the letter that day, and Kate literally pinned me against a wall. I was like, and it wasn't a comfortable wall, it was a bumpy wall, I have to add. And I said to her, I can't deal with this. I'm about to be homeless. She said, I don't care, you've got something. And she kicked butt, she held me accountable, and every time I was in the shadow, it was almost like she had a lasso. She went, get out here. You regret it now, don't you? So this is sort of my moment to say thank you, but reel in the stories. Julia Van Gra, one of my favourite moments in my life. The first time I met her, she said, are you the Lisa McAdams? And that would be quite cool if I didn't make her say it every time I see her. What was it you said? Julia's faith in me and belief that EY could use what I had. She believed what I had was worth having before I even really understood what I had. She's advocated for me, pushed me, reminded me. And anybody, I'm not going to talk about Julia's life, but anybody that knows Julia's life, she's found time to have breakfast and lunch with me as well. So, for me, being here now, I say, and people that know me well, I say it all the time, it's all about me. I say it all the time, it's all about me, it's all about me. But the truth is, this book is not about me. Because people say to me all the time, my gosh, you can change the world. And the truth is, I can't. I can tell a story, I can write a book, I can tell you what I've learned, both from my life in corporate and dealing with domestic violence, from child abuse, and from what I've learned in the last 3 years being in companies like EY. But that's as far as I can go. I'm not in your workplace. I can't make these things implemented. I can't train your staff without you doing it. So it's the people in corporate, in government, that can actually do the change. I just help as a guide, as somebody that can say, this is my advice. So, pains me to say it, but it's not about me. And that's the last time you're going to hear me say that. I'm wary of keeping this short, and I'm going to tell the story of how I got to be here, and then I'm going to tell you why I tell it. Tanya sort of started it. I, like Tanya we all stalk Annabelle Daniel, by the way. Everyone knows, oh, Annabelle always knows, oh, what? Ah, yes, I'm going to pretend I found that report. But I'm honest. And Annabelle, obviously, and Tanya were thinking, and then Tanya she's brave, she goes out there, she puts herself out there, but more than anything else, and the people that know me well will know this, she is so funny. Like, literally one of the funniest people I know. So I just DM'd her on Twitter. Like, the fact that I found DM on Twitter was and we met for lunch. We got on, we have a lot of the same passions around this area, and then she invited me to give a talk. So I went, and Chris talked about that. And I met Chris at that talk, and this is where I want to thank Chris, because in this journey, and there are a lot of people in this room that said they can help, thank you, Eliza, we both know what you did. But Chris said, if there's anything I can do, and you sort of, and anybody in business knows, you get used to that, and you go, yeah, thanks. And then you say, could I borrow a breath mint? Like, oh, I've only got 2. I would love to, but, But Chris, he doesn't just mean that, you asked us something and I came in for a meeting and I wasn't overly nice. The first time I was supposed to meet Chris, literally half an hour before I was supposed to leave, I get a call and it's my daughter's teacher at the swimming carnival going, I think she's broke her foot. And I'm like, and we'd only connected on LinkedIn. I thought, you can't cancel on LinkedIn. So I'm ringing Tanya to ring his office. So I didn't turn up. Then I come the next year and then he takes me round. I met Troy and I was supposed to follow up, but Glandular Fever had other ideas. And when I come out of that haze, I thought, I really ought to apologise to that man. I've really been quite rude. But it still didn't put him off because here I am. And I came in and said, and I had this idea of going to Troy's constituency, and if they had a breakfast morning, I'd go, do you want to buy a couple of books? But Chris has bigger vision than me. And it's not a very professional moment, but he said, let's go and see the room, see if you like it. That was a really weird question, by the way. I walked in the door and I went, I'm going to cry. And is Gibbo's still here? She was going, you're all right, Hold yourself up. So there are so many people here that have made moments in my life, and probably because I'm English, a big moment for me was the BBC. I was on the BBC, and that article took a lot of time, and I made a really good friend in the writing of it, and it was a huge moment for me because it was the BBC. I was on the BBC. Did I mention I was on the BBC? And today I don't want to talk because I think we're starting to be aware of what companies can do. And my little preach is we can do surveys, we can get policies out there, we can do, but if we don't start talking about it and teaching our people how to feel comfortable talking about it, we're not going to make a difference. Because, as I said, when I was really ready to leave, and in the process of knowing Catherine, I already run away to England, got there and thought, oh, I remember all these people are horrible as well. Oh dear. And I came back, but I had a clinical psychologist who knew when to pause, when to let me think, and she probably doesn't know that I noticed this, but we used to go to a park right by her house, and if I was really cray-cray, she'd go, hey, why don't we go back to mine for some lunch? I can't let you drive with your children yet. But that first conversation is really important because you can clam up. If you think someone's disinterested, and the most important thing, and it's a very overused word, but authentic, if you feel uncomfortable talking about it, say, this is tough. No one's disclosed to me, but I'm here for you. I'm really, because then the person disclosing gets the same feeling back for you that matches your words. If you try and fake it, somebody that's been through abuse and knows that trauma will pick it, and they will make their own thing up. Oh my God, she doesn't want me to tell her. She thinks I'm useless, and they make this whole thing. So just be honest and say, I want to help you. I'm not quite sure how or what we'll do, but I'm here. And educate your workplaces, not just around the numbers, and they're important, but also how do we communicate? How does someone feel as comfortable as they can when someone says to you, my life's hell? And the other thing you've got to be aware is, and probably Catherine was lucky here, not me, but people, when they first disclose, over-disclose. I'm very careful now. When I talk, I will go, this may be triggering, and some, I will gauge the room. Sometimes I will look around the room and think, this audience won't cope with that story. But I didn't really care back then. And I didn't know it wasn't normal. I didn't know what horror stories I was telling. So to me, that's my passion piece, thus the book. I give a lot of my stories in there, but I tell them to give context. And to be honest, they're probably not even the juiciest ones. You'll have to wait for the sequel for that. Now, that is the end of me even trying to be professional, because the next person I've got to thank is... I can do this. This lady literally saved my life. And I only ran into her again last Thursday at a conference that Tanya runs. She was my crisis worker. She was the person, knew I couldn't do this. She was the person that caught me when I fell. She knew when to laugh, when to be hard-ass, when to be gentle. And one of my favourite memories is she came in on a Saturday and there was a door that locked to the office. And she came through it and I was in the lounge room on my own. And some of the women were laughing down the back, and I remember looking at her saying, why is it funny? This isn't funny. This isn't funny. Why are they laughing? And she knelt down and she stroked my arm and said, Lisa, I really think you need to think about going on antidepressants. I'm going to take you to the doctor. All I can do is take you. You need to talk to the doctor. Now, I'd love to say that was such a beautiful moment, and I thought, I love that woman. What I thought is, what does she bloody know? Who wouldn't be miserable in this situation? But she knew when to hold me, when to let me go. And one of the most powerful things, and I still think it now, and it's part of how I parent, and it's I got a flat tire in my stroller, and I was completely incapable of dealing with it. I went into the thing going, I can't go. And up till then, they'd been taking me and doing it for me. And Tanya got one of the other women to phone the bike shop, tell them I was coming. They watched the children, and I went. And I came back with this wheel with a new inner tube in it, and I said to Tanya, I did it all by myself. And she tapped me, she said, yeah, it's called empowering. And it made me realise in that moment that everybody in my life had been trying to disempower me, but what if I find the right people? Now, you don't often get to thank people, and we've all got heroes, and I'm not saying I don't still find Chris Hemsworth cute, but I've got a real life superhero, and she literally saved my life, and there was different workers, but I needed exactly what Tanya had to offer. And as my son put it brilliantly, he said, "Mummy, if she hadn't been there that day and been our worker, I'd probably be dead." And he's not wrong. So more important than anything today for me is, and it's such, for the adulation that I'm getting, and there's a lot of people that work in this group, these are the heroes. And talking of heroes, because I've left it on a Debbie Downer, I'm going to leave Tanya to say something sweet and remind you I'm a professional.
Thanks, Lisa. I think what we find empowering as workers, and I've been in this job for 25 years. I've worked in corporate before that. I worked for a stockbroker and earned ridiculous amounts of money. What I really find over and over is that, and everyone here will probably agree, is that the most powerful thing is to find a woman find herself and find that empowerment to be able to do what she chooses to do when she chooses to do it, not when she's told to and not when she thinks she should do it. So I think while Lisa has had an amazing journey and has written this amazing book, I think there is a lot of value in acknowledging the people that have been in her life and have supported her to where she is now, because we all have a role to play as a community in addressing the issue of domestic and family violence. So just making all this up as it comes along. No, but I truly mean, I think that there's a lot of people here who absolutely get what I'm saying. Our job is not to tell our clients what they should or shouldn't do. Our job is to empower them and give them the tools to make the decisions they choose to make. I've got clients that I've had on and off for over 10 years because they come, something's happened, we help them through that, we give them their options, they go, they might go back to him, they might not go back to him, they might assault him, they might end up in jail, a whole lot of different things happen to them, but they know the one consistent thing they've got is they know that they've got that service to go back and support and for a little bit more guidance if that's what they need. So what I find very, I think Lisa and I have a very understanding relationship. So I do remember when we went to lunch and she had a little posh voice and I'm sitting there thinking, oh, she's so posh and proper, and I remember saying, Lisa, do you swear? And she went, oh, thank God.
That's not what I said.
No, I'm being nice. So we got on like a house on fire after that. But what I find particularly empowering about Lisa is that she's travelled the journey. She's had a whole lot of crap happen, and it's been horrible and it's been demoralising and it's impacted entirely on her whole life. It's impacted on everything she is and was, and look where she is now. So you can come through it. I think that's what I find particularly powerful in working with women, is that they don't realise how much potential they have until they've got a little bit of support, and then their life is amazing. The world is their oyster. I particularly love, like I meet women who bring in their sisters and their girlfriends and they say, you've got to talk to this woman. And I'm quite blunt in a lot of things that I deal with. I've got an amazing team, so when I need someone who's nice and warm and soft, it's definitely not me, and I give them to somebody else. But what I find particularly empowering as a worker to be able to last this long is to meet women who have gone to TAFE, or they've gone to uni, or they've got a job, or they've gone to a cafe to have a cup of tea without worrying that they shouldn't be there and he's going to check where she's been. They can go in their car and they don't have to worry about the kilometres that they've driven. They can go to their kids' school and they can watch their kids at school. All of these things that we all take for granted, all of the workers here that are nodding, we all hear this all the time. And I think that we need to acknowledge not only the journey that Lisa's had, but how amazing it is that she's now wanting to pay it forward, and I'm a very strong believer in paying it forward, is that she's now paid it forward and what she's seen is an actual area that needs her support, an area that needs her guidance, and an area that needs to have something that is in a book so that a HR person, and some of them are a little bit wanky, we have to admit, sit in their little ivory towers sometimes, and someone comes in and they go, oh my God, and say this horrific verbal diarrhea of things that have just happened that all of us as workers, we go, okay then, and they're like, oh my God. So now they have a book that they can look at that actually is a really easy book to see, well, what do I do if that happens? And what I didn't notice when I read it before, because it didn't have it in it, it's even got a little index at the back with things to where pages are, and it's got notes, and it's a proper book, Lisa. I'm super impressed. I think what we need to do is acknowledge we've got a lot of work to do in the business sector. I think that we're doing some amazing work now. There's lots and lots of amazing men and women out there that are promoting that domestic violence needs to be addressed in the workplace. There's some amazing businesses that do have domestic violence leave policies and paid leave for women who need to go because of domestic violence. There's businesses that want to know more, and there's businesses that are really honest and say, we don't have a clue, we need some help. So now I can say, well, you need to go and buy this book, and then you need to pay Lisa to come in and give you some training and things like that. In the context, I guess, of where I'm coming from, I'm work in the Macarthur area, which covers quite a huge area and has quite a lot of different socio-economic areas. So we've got, you know, a lot of people that live in social housing, but we've also got a huge growth area in Camden with Oran Park and Gregory Hills that are just insane. So what I want to put in a context for us as a service, so we've got lots and lots of businesses, we've got lots and lots of very good business owners, very expensive places. You know, it's a bit flash in some parts of Macarthur, some other parts not so flash. But just in a context, so Oran Park and Gregory Hills started to be developed, I don't know, how long ago? A couple of years ago?
Yeah, 5 or 6.
5 or 6 years ago. So I was actually doing a little bit of research the other night because I'm a loser and I didn't go home because, you know, I just thought I'd stay at work till 7 o'clock at night. But the statistics of course, there's all different postcodes. So when I wanted to look at a specific postcode, which is the Camden postcode, and I'm working currently on a project with Miss Annabelle that is really going to kick ass when we get it sorted, and it's going to be amazing. But I wanted to look at the context of what the statistics show, because we have to live and breathe statistics. We all know we get funded, we have to do certain things, we've got to have criteria, we've got KPIs, all that kind of stuff. So I thought, well, I'll just check out what the DV statistics are like for such a huge growth area, because what we see is an increase in Oran Park and Gregory Hills around domestic violence, and these are families that all work. They're families that have different cultural backgrounds. There's quite a diversity in these areas now, and it's more than just mum, dad and the kids. It's mum, dad, grandparents and the kids. So it's quite an extended family unit that tends to live in these areas, in these ridiculously huge houses with ridiculously huge mortgages. So of course that then leaves it open to issues around financial abuse, and if somebody loses their job and then they can't afford their mortgage and their 2 cars and their private school and all of these things that they believe are what make them a good family, or whatever they choose to believe, it then impacts on the structure of the family unit with mum and dad, and more often than not what we then see is mum being abused in different forms, not necessarily physical, but as we all know, all of the other forms of domestic violence have a much more deeper impact on women and their sense of self. So just in the last 2 years, according to what I looked up, domestic violence in one postcode area, which is just Camden, has increased by 44%. And that's in 2 years. And that's an area that was a racetrack, because I used to go there. So what we need to understand is that there's a really valuable opportunity here with Lisa and her book, in that we need to target those businesses where all of these people work. because these people need help and support. And on the other side of it, we need to also acknowledge that these men need the support. They need to have someone that they can go to get support around their issues, around their anger management, around their mental health, around their drug and alcohol use, and all of those things. We need to see, as we have here in this room, strong men who are prepared to stand up and say this is not okay. We as feminists will always have our soapboxes. I will talk underwater. Everybody who knows me knows that. And usually I've got someone going, that's enough.
You're free to go.
Can I just last
Yeah,
thing?
of course you can.
Troy, sorry, I'd like to acknowledge Prue is here. Prue is our Minister for a number of things, homelessness, facts, domestic violence. So Prue wanted to pop in. Thank you very much for that. That's lovely, not expected, but thank you. But Troy would like to do a presentation to you, Lisa. So, and other than that, have a lovely day.
I'll keep it short, but thank you all for being here for Lisa, and you've given out plenty of gifts. The greatest gift is your...
Inability to turn my phone on.
The greatest gift is your book and what changes that'll make in the workplace. But just as a show of gratitude for letting me be involved in this special day is a copy of my wife's books.
Thank you.